and this is a roundtable on online learning, project-based learning, and all topics that go with it. This is going to be a conversation that I'll be able to share with credential and master students, and I'm going to go in order of just if you could briefly introduce yourself first. And actually, before I do though, I selected all the people here or invited all the people, and I was blessed, lucky that they all accepted the invitation, all four that I invited. And these are all like amazing educators that I look up to, and I couldn't think of a better project-based learning group to ask questions to with people going into online learning. So Bethany, first, if you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Bethany Gonzales, and I teach at McKinley Elementary in Bakersfield, California. I'm going into teaching fourth grade. I have taught third and fourth grade in the past, and I work at a Title I school.
And then Valerie, take it away.
I'm Valerie Perez, and I teach at Brownie Road STEAM Academy in McFarland. This is my 20th year in education. I can't believe I'm saying that. I've worked with TK through 6th grade. My passion is STEAM, but I have a foundation in literacy, so I try to bring literacy into STEAM as much as possible. And this year I'll be working with 6th grade.
Cool. And then Ascension, sir.
Hi, my name is Ascension Reyes. I'm right now currently a technology resource teacher at De Anza STEM Magnet in El Centro, California, where I teach the technology and STEM electives for the middle school kids. In addition, I teach one course at San Diego State University in the teacher ed department, where I teach educational technology.
And then last but not least, that homie, Jesus.
Jesus Huerta, I teach, well, I taught 5th grade last year, but I'm actually looping with my students into 6th grade, so I'll have the same group. So as soon as we start rock and roll right away. I teach at Kennedy Gardens in Calexico, California. So, I mean, I'm good friends with Mr. Reyes. We're in the same district, a couple of years back. I teach, multiple subjects, but I focus a lot on project-based learning and STEAM. And that's how I've connected with everybody here too, especially with Val.
Cool. So let's hop right into it. First, the purpose here was just that I don't want, that one of the big fears as we're going into online learning this fall is that, we start resorting to our comfort zones and what makes life possibly easier for us when really life could be much easier with, with some nice little activities and ideas that we can implement, so I'm hoping that in this discussion, we can share for teachers things that they can do to feel more comfortable in an online learning environment and be able to facilitate project-based learning. So my first question is going to go with, how can teachers break out of the monotony of lecturing in an online setting? And whoever wants to go first with this one, I'll go ahead and let go for it.
I'll go first. It can become, it can get scary just, with what we're doing now with distance learning, especially now that it's going to go all the time for a while. And I saw that even with my own children at home, their teachers kind of got caught into the workbook, worksheet kind of thing. And that's what my high school kids were getting. I had a freshman and a junior. And it was, it was worksheets online and basically that kind of thing. My advice would be, if you're a teacher that's going to kind of jump into this and you want to do something a little different, don't jump into the new stuff full force. Take it easy, balance. Try one or two kind of project-based approaches first. And there's all kinds of project-based. There's passion-based, there's place-based, there's problem-based. Just try one or two in your first go at it. And there's a lot of stuff online you can try. Sometimes even just doing explorations, doing web quests at first, things like web quests, having kids use Google Earth to explore a topic. They have really good ready-made kind of things that you can have them start on. And then, start with the simple thing like having them do a video reflection. And if they're doing something passion-based, maybe they are into playing violin or something like that. Move them along with that, but balance it out. Do your traditional things that you usually do, but start gradually bringing in something else. And I don't know if it's, can I quickly share a picture, Eddie?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, do you have the sharing settings, or are they, are you able to?
Let me see. Yeah.
All right, go
Okay.
for it.
All right. So I posted this recently. And so for teachers thinking, I want to stick to what I do already, just remember the audience that you're appealing to. You're appealing to kids that when they leave your classroom, they use more technology than you use in probably 1 hour in your classroom. A lot of them use Amazon to buy stuff and, video games, and they're doing everything. They're collaborating, they're communicating, they're being creative. And so as you move forward with whatever it is you decide to do in project-based learning or traditional learning, remember, as you plan, remember what the kids are already doing outside of your class. Hopefully that'll give you some direction on that front. So I thought I wanted to share that kind of thought.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Let's see. And next, let's on my screen, we're going to go clockwise. So Valerie, do you want to hop in?
Yes. So I like that you had mentioned the creativity because a lot of what basically when I'm talking about lessons, or my place where I start is with the 4 C's, with the giving students an opportunity to be creative. And then I'm constantly thinking about how can I get students to collaborate? And, to be honest, I was just sharing, that this is my 20th year, and this distance learning, I'll be vulnerable here. It makes me nervous because there's so much I want to do, but then my brain starts thinking, how am I going to execute that over a screen? How am I going to bring that same magic that you would bring in a physical classroom over a screen? And I think a lot of that falls back on giving students choice and building a connection with your students. Even starting off because I'm thinking about the synchronous learning, the live teaching. I'm thinking just asking them a question to bring down whatever anxiety the students might have, getting to know them, and then from there going into, how can we collaborate, and how can we get our students to think critically? So when I think about STEAM, I always come from a place of there are certain skills that need to be taught. So I'm always asking, the first thing I ask, and this is what every teacher should be thinking about, is what are my objectives? What's my standard? And then the next question I think every teacher should ask is, how does this connect to the real world? And you're not going to find that on a worksheet. You're not going to find that from a textbook. I mean, maybe you might, but you find a way to make it relevant. And it doesn't have to be fancy. And if, it can be something like I start off with the 5 E's for science, getting the students to create their own slide and explain the 5 E's, where I'm not pushing out a worksheet. I'm giving them an opportunity to express or explain what the 5 E's are. So definitely want to build that creativity and the real world in.
Well, cool. Thanks. In the discussion part, I'm going to be putting some of the topics that you guys are mentioning. So like Ascension, you had mentioned place-based learning, project-based learning. I'll be dropping that in there. You mentioned the 5 E's. I'll be putting that in there. So let's go next. We're going down. Jesus.
So for me, I guess the advice I would give teachers is, I'm trying to think of a way to say it. I don't want to come off rude, I guess. I think they need to come to terms with reality. You're not in your classroom, so stop acting like you are. Stop trying to do what you're doing. And I don't mean that to be rude, but I think some teachers try to shoehorn what they were doing in the classroom. Like you mentioned, how do I capture that magic? Val said it perfectly. And really, if I can jump off of that or build off of that, you're going to make different magic. And it's totally different. Because, I mean, I know which students I could walk by in the classroom and just put my hand on their shoulder and say, hey, how's it going? And that's my redirection. Because I know if I tell them something, they're going to blow up. I can't do that anymore. So I have to find another way to redirect them and motivate them. The number one thing is creativity. Give them something that they've never experienced before. You might say, well, how can I do that in the classroom? Well, in a digital classroom, I think the number one thing is using like a Facebook group or going on Twitter. If they're not using Twitter, go on Twitter. And then start looking up, just do a search for education or edtech. And you'll get tons of resources for free. You don't have to go buy anything on Pay Teacher. I'm not knocking the site, just saying, you know. And if you ask a question on there, you start following some people, they'll start answering and you'll get, you know, some good responses. I think trying to shoehorn what was happening before can't happen. I mean, I can't do what I was doing before because I only, you know, I can't deliver materials. Not every kid is going to have the materials that I need them to have. I think the other thing is, you know, going outside your comfort zone in, you know, regards to like history or science. You know what, these are my standards. Okay, I'm going to teach them. When the kids ask something though, like, oh, hey, you know, what happens here in science though? If it's not a standard, but you have their attention because they're asking a great question, you need to, you know, go off to the side, hook them in and do that. And I've seen Val do that. Val, you're awesome, by the way. I want to give you props. But and everybody here, not knocking anybody else, just mentioned. But it's very easy, like you said, to get complacent. And I think once we hit, and it's something I've talked to Eddie about before, I think even with Ascension, come September, October, you're gonna start seeing a lot of kids not going to class because they're like, this is boring, I hate it. Unless, and I'm not saying go up and dress up and dance, I'm not knocking any, you know, any other educators, but that's cool too. But you gotta have something for them to do that they're like, okay, this is A, meaningful, B, creative, and C, fulfilling. If they don't have those, forget it. Because if you have a job that doesn't do those three, guess what? You're at a dead end job that you hate, right? So why are we giving kids dead end jobs right now? And that's what we should not be doing.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Bethany.
I think that right off the bat, Jesus touched on a great point of complacency. Again, not to shame anybody else, but going to Teachers Pay Teachers and just finding a digital version of the worksheet and assigning that online is not going to hold the same merit as doing something else. And to go off of Valerie's point as well, not only are teachers scared of this new digital platform, but students are scared too. And I think it's really important to let your students know, like, this is new for me too. If you're not good with technology and you have intermediate middle school students, chances are your students know how to use technology really, really well. And I would recommend asking them. There's no shame in telling your students like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me with that? Or what's something your teacher's done before? Because our students have such a wealth of knowledge that isn't always tapped into. So I think definitely don't be afraid to be vulnerable with them because they're going to struggle the same way. And you really do need to find a way to capture their attention. And like it was mentioned before, even we can't rely on the same things we would in the past. Like I teach PLTW, but now my students aren't going to have their iPads or their VEX kits or things like that. I can't get them materials we would use. So having to find a new avenue for that is challenging. But it's necessary because you are going to start losing students. Nobody wants to sit in front of the computer all day, you know, and just be talked to and do worksheets. So don't be afraid to try new things, even if it's something simple, like was mentioned. And I think really great things that you can look for and crowdsource are things that have to do with the Google Apps for education, because they're very simple to use. They mimic, you know, all the Microsoft features, but there's so many different things that you can do with them. Even just a way that you can use Google Slides, you can have them, you know, make presentations, you can have them make manipulative, so many different things, embed videos. So just like it was mentioned, you know, start off slow, but don't be afraid to go somewhere because now's your chance. Like we're teaching digitally. You may not have had this chance before, but you're here now. So I think just make the most of it. Don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it's from your students, and just, you know, try to keep not only your students entertained, but I think I selfishly always try to keep myself entertained too. Because if I were to sit there and like do a worksheet all day, like I know I have ADD, I would be bored. So anything hands-on, even if it's like, you know, go outside and find these 3 materials, or like Google Earth was mentioned, kids are obsessed with looking at their own house. So start with that, reel them in, and then take it somewhere else where you're still going to hit the content, you're still going to hit the standards, but in a way that's going to be memorable to the students.
So what I want to point out from that first little section of everything that everybody was mentioning was that nowhere did anybody say we got to lower our expectations, we've got to take things easier. So I'm going to kind of do a quick recap. This is really great stuff. Again, Ascension, talking about project-based learning, place-based learning, inquiry-based lessons, basically, and asking for higher levels of thinking. Valerie talking about the 5E lessons, but also talking about like starting simple. So, you know, you can't fly until you run, right? Or even walk. Jesus talking about actually going out, connecting with people, finding people, getting new resources, meeting new people, pushing yourself out of your own comfort zone first, primarily, right? It's almost biblical. You know, you can only work on your own self first. Then finally, Bethany, you know, you can't rely on the past, and you got to meet kids in new avenues and new necessary ways. So I'm going to throw out to you all next, if you have a response or anything that you'd like to share from something that somebody else heard, or if you want to piggyback on any ideas that somebody had at that moment.
You know what, Bethany, what you said about being vulnerable, I when I had to observe teachers when I was doing my student teaching and going for my credentials, I seen some teachers panic when they didn't have an answer. And I think it goes back to, you know, the smartest person in the room. I think the smartest person in the room is recognizing that they don't have to be the smartest person in the room. And sometimes teachers fall apart because they're like, I have to know everything. My students know that sometimes I misplaced my phone and I left it on a student's desk and they could walk away with it. But because of the culture, they don't. But sometimes I'm like, where's my phone? And I'm like, oh, where's my marker? Val's laughing, everybody, you guys have done the same. Okay, so I don't feel so bad.
Oh yeah.
But you know, like COVID-19, I didn't explain properly, or I misunderstood why it was called COVID-19. And I had to tell kids, hey, you know what? I just saw yesterday, I explained it wrong. But they were already used to it because they've seen me make mistakes, or, you know, if I called somebody out and then I found out, oh, they didn't do anything wrong, I would apologize in front of everybody. And I think it's important for teachers to do that, because if not, you're like this cold machine that knows everything. I'm a teaching robot. That's it. Me have no feelings kind of thing. And it's like, no, you know, I'm a person too. I mean, look behind me. A lot of that stuff is what I would have in my classroom, so they know who I am. And I think being vulnerable is a big thing.
I agree, because if we're teaching students in BCSD, we tell them, you know, fail forward, like it's your first attempt in learning. It's hard to tell students that if you yourself can't model that, like I made a mistake. And I think, like you said, it's so important, because I've seen so many of my students get so frustrated when they don't understand the concept the first time, you know, and we have to walk them through. You're not supposed to understand it the first time. That's okay. That's why you're here. That's why you're in school. We're going to keep working. Nobody typically designs something and it's perfect the first time. That's why I really love how we incorporate PLTW into the district. And you do have, you know, the 5Es, and you have to go through all this different design process, because nothing's perfect and it's never going to be. But just because you're not successful at it doesn't mean it's a failure. And I think it's really important that our students see that as well, and that we fail too.
Absolutely. I have to agree with that, most definitely. And I know I've mentioned this to Dr. Gonzales in the past, that students are just so willing to teach you, and it just happens organically when you say, you know, we're going to do this project, or we're going to take on this new risk in teaching, and we're just going to jump right in. Because I tell my students, I'm a jumper, so we're going to jump into this, and I don't know where it's going to take us, but we're going to learn something along the way. And in the process, I think, Jesus, I think you're the one that mentioned it, that just because we have a standard doesn't mean we have to stay stuck to that standard, because you don't want to miss those teachable moments. I was telling my principal the other day that, yes, I know our district has initiatives, but with STEAM or with project-based learning, if you have the eyes to see, you can hit every single district initiative. You just have to have the vision. You have to be able to recognize a teachable moment when it's right there in front of your face. And a lot of times it happens not because it was planned, but it was organic. It just naturally occurred. So it's exciting.
And that's the secret. That's the secret behind project-based learning. That's what people don't understand. They think, oh, they're just gonna build like a contraption. No, because they got to measure. There's my math. You know, when they write about it, there's some ELA, and they go through the writing process. They don't just hand in garbage. And I think that's why when someone starts using project-based learning effectively, they fall in love with it and they don't go back, because they're like, oh wait, I can encompass more, and I'm actually creating more time to explore something the kids are curious about. Or I can explore that curiosity and still hit these other standards if I structure it properly, just like you said.
Cool. Thank you. Ascension. Oh, unmute yourself, Ascension. Let me get you. Sorry. Unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So kind of piggybacking on what Val said and Bethany and actually everybody, the whole standards thing, you know, I think sometimes when you're getting into whether it's STEAM, STEM, project-based learning, sometimes you need to, like they say, you need to think about the hard skills and the soft skills. And sometimes I think it's okay that the hard skills take a back seat at that time. You know, sometimes, because I've noticed, you know, once you start doing these kind of projects where you're the facilitator and you say, hey, go for it. It's okay, go for it. And, you know, kids will come back to you and they'll go, well, is it okay if we tear this? Yeah, it's okay. But I need to bend it in half. Yeah, see what happens. And I think with the worksheet kind of mentality and the standard kind of mentality, that kind of mindset for the kids to be independent and let's go for it. Yeah, I want to see. And if they don't have that, that's the biggest obstacle to kids learning how to be to have perseverance. Otherwise, they're going to give up. If they can't do it the way it appears in their head and they want to try it to see, it may not work. But that soft skill of, and that's the beginning, that curiosity, that's the beginning of problem solving right there. Those soft skills sometimes, you know, even if a child wants to use a screwdriver, hey, but I'm not sure how to use it, and a group of kids get together to learn to unscrew just one item, to me, that's for that moment, that's worth so much more than if they, you know, did the little assessment correctly. If they learn those soft skills, they learn so much. That's kind of my observation, and it kind of goes back to what Val was talking about, standards and the things that Jesus and Bethany were talking about.
That was awesome.
No, I like it. The only part, can you guys, for the audience, I'm not sure what's a standard. No, I'm just playing. So I'm gonna skip the second question, because I think you guys really did well to even answer the second question, which was supporting teachers and implementing these engaging and online learning experiences. And I'm gonna hop to the third one, and the third one is, what does the ideal online class look like? You know, whether this is, you know, September, you know, mid-September or October, like what does your dream, your vision look like? And if you're not a class and you're supporting teachers, you know, what, as you're supporting or coaching a teacher, what does that look like? And then and going with that, how can an administrator help support that vision? So going back, what does the ideal online learning class look like? And then how can administrators support that vision? And so last time, Ascension went first on the last one. So we're going to start with Bethany. You'll go first this time.
In my mind, when I picture, you know, a great distance learning classroom, it's one, like we've spoken about before, where the kids are invested in what is being taught. They're not just, you know, sitting there and staring at the screen. They're not trying to be on their phone while they're also watching you. There has to be that investment that is there. And I think it has to be from both sides, from the teacher and the students, because the students can tell, you know, if you're not really invested in what you're teaching. So now is the time, like I mentioned, like to figure out different ways to teach the standard. And like it was mentioned, it's so important that they learn multiple ways to get there. So don't be afraid, like, oh, my students have to do it this way and this way only. There's so many different ways. And you know what? If you teach your students something and they fail at it, that's okay. Teach it a different way and see if they get it that way. So don't even worry about maybe your students not getting the standard, but even yourself teaching it. I think that what administrators can do is not only be supportive, but also, you know, just kind of invest in themselves as an administrator to learn these technological skills so that they can help support teachers as well. Open up opportunities for maybe teachers who aren't really as comfortable with technology to either meet in PLC or to go watch a person teach, things like that. Just be supportive and don't put so much on your teachers to where they feel overwhelmed and stressed. Because I've heard from a few people, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to do this and I have to make a Google site and I have to do this and this and this, when they're just trying to stay afloat in the mind of digital teaching. So I think having resources available for them, walking them through the steps is key.
Cool. Thank you. And then I believe, Jesus, you went second to last time, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Go ahead and go next this
Sure.
time.
So you want to know what I think the ideal classroom should look like?
Or what are you shooting for? What are you shooting for in your ideal classroom?
Oh, mine. You know what? I always tell my students the same thing. And right now I kind of got like, oh, maybe I should hold back. But you know what? I always tell the teachers too, no, don't hold back. Don't sell yourself short. I shouldn't right now either, right? Honestly, for me, I have the same group, but even if I didn't have the same group, after the first day, you better be ready to rock and roll. That's what I always tell them. And I told them that this year because they saw the printers and they're like, oh, so we're gonna use 3D printers like in a couple months? I go, no, couple hours. What? Yeah, somebody's gonna print today. No way. I'm like, yeah, we get to touch the machine. I'm like, and it goes back to what Mr. Reyes said earlier. They're used to this, you know, rigid thing. So they go into a classroom that's fluid and they have a lot more freedom. It's like, wait, what is this? And I'm not trying to brag, but I showed Eddie. I had some Dr. Gonzales. Sorry, let me remember where I'm at. I showed him. You know, I got texts from parents that the kids were like crying. They were happy, not crying because they were scared of me, but they were happy that they were going to come back with me. I think because one, it's reassuring. Like, okay, I'm going to go back with someone I know, and I've met the person face to face. But also the way my class runs. My goal is to really push them along again with what I was already teaching them last year. Like history, one thing I did with history is I would hit the standards, but then I would just ask them, what do you guys want to know about history? And they would ask like, not weird, but random questions like, oh, okay. And actually one of the last projects that we did, and it's something I want to expand on, was they had to pick a Latino leader. One was Cesar Chavez, and I said, now everybody can pick Cesar Chavez because down here, he's a big deal. And some of them picked people that they had never heard of, and they did these awesome presentations. And I wanted them to connect with, you know, where they're coming from and what impacts them, especially down here in Southern California. Especially if you're somewhere where there's a lot of agriculture, like up there, I think where Val and Bethany are, there's a lot of agriculture. So you have a lot of migrant kids. So I think what I want to do is just keep pushing the same thing, which is creativity, engagement. To me, those are paramount. I've always said, if you can't get them engaged, you could have the deepest knowledge of math. It doesn't matter if you're the most boring person ever. You know, if you go watch a movie and the first 20 minutes suck, you walk out, right? Same thing here. If you're not, and I don't mean by like I said, singing and dancing. That's a cool thing too. But you got to have those lessons and those ideas that is really going to get them to say, you know what, I want to invest time in this. A worksheet, they're going to go, yeah, I've done that before. And right now it's even harder because we got to get them like, you know, away from whatever they're distracted by at home. So whatever we have, they have to go, you know what, I'm going to put that controller down. I'm going to put my phone down. Not just be like, you have to be here. Like they want to be there. I think that's the number one thing. And that's what I want to keep doing, because I did have pretty good attendance at the end, and I did have a lot of engagement. Out of 33, I had 26 students that I didn't have to report as not doing anything. And I heard some horror stories. Some people were like, I only had 3 the whole time. And I was like, whoa. I don't know if it's them or if it was just, you know what, they had bad luck. But I told that person, you need to try to change what you're doing. And I wasn't trying to be rude. It's just, if that's not working, don't stick to it. You got to change it.
Yeah.
What was the second part of that question, Eddie? You asked that. What do I?
How can administrators support this vision? I'll drop the questions also in the little chat.
As for me, an admin right now, and again, I'm not trying to sound rude. I think they got to loosen those purse strings a little bit. And I know budgets have been cut, but if I'm a teacher and I'm using, you know, Chrome Music Lab, and my kids love it. And I have this awesome idea for music to be implemented in my class, which I do use music a lot in the classroom. Hey, you know, if you don't mind, there's a better program. There's Soundtrap or something else, you know, can you invest in that? Plus, you know, if I can parlay that into podcasting or whatever else, I think not just give us the training on, you know, LMS and Flipgrid. All right, the greatest hits, we've seen them already. Most of us already seen them. Invest in trainings and something like, okay, this is engaging, it's totally different, or here's a program, you know, I need $100 for 30 seats. Can you hook me up? I think that has to happen because there are a lot of cool free resources, but everybody here is going to probably go like this. There's some awesome stuff, but yeah, I got to pay for it. And sometimes I don't want to pay for it, or it's too expensive for a teacher. And I know there's budget cuts, but I think an admin supporting, not just saying, hey, good job, continue doing it, also going, hey, is there something better? Okay, how can we get that to you and other teachers? Or can you give a training and whoever wants it, I'll see how we can fund it. That has to happen. Otherwise, you know what? The kids, again, what's going to happen is kids are going to be like, I'm not going to show up because it's boring.
Cool. Thank you. And then that makes you next, Valerie.
So I thought a lot about this, you know, about what I wanted it to look, what I want distance learning to look like. And we know there has to be the synchronous and asynchronous learning. And of course, you want that synchronous learning to be engaging. I don't want it to be like, I think Bethany said it, a screen where kids are just staring at me and I'm just giving them information. So what comes to mind is less of me and more of them. I love how Dr. Gonzales is just sitting there and listening, you know, and the rest of us are doing that talking, and we know the norms, and that's what I want for my students. I want them to be able to come into the Zoom and be able to discuss and collaborate, and me be there to facilitate that, because that's pretty much how I ran my classroom. I would give them what they needed, and then I would let them go, and then I would let them make their mistakes, and then we would come back and reflect. And that's going to be a combination of what we do live and then what we do independently, and then let's come back and reflect and work on that. I was also listening to Jesus, what he had said about 3D printing. I've been thinking a lot about the fact that I still do want hands-on learning. And for us, you know, there's a few of us science teachers that discussed that we are going to have to put together kits. And I'm not talking about, like, we have Project Lead the Way as well. I'm not talking about sending home robots or anything like that, but what's in our science kits that we can send home with students? You know, if we want them to plant something and we have the soil and the seeds, well, can we put that together in a kit? Because I would love to see students building right here. Let's start building right here on camera. Of course, there has to be a lot of norms that take place, and I think that procedures and all of that has to happen. And I think that admin needs to understand that. I think our admin, if they jump on a Zoom on day one, I know, I can already tell you, I know it's not going to look the way I want it to look. I feel like I have a lot to learn still with distance learning. And if I have any problems, I already know I'm going to call Jesus and ask him, how did you get 30 something kids? But I just want our principals to understand that it's not going to look the way we want on day one, but we're working on it. And I'm a reflective person. So if I didn't get the engagement, I'm definitely going to be asking, what can I do differently to reach these kids? And a lot of that has to do with establishing relationships so that these students will want to tell me what they're interested in. And I need to start building that in so that they want to keep coming back. I think that's
Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Ascension.
Yeah, wow. Those are all good stuff that you guys are talking about. And, you know, it brings me to something that Val said, you keep them coming back. So I'm going to share am I sharing right now? Is the picture showing up?
Yes.
So that picture kind of, you know, goes back to what Val said. How do you keep them engaged? And what Jesus said, you know, if it's not worth, you know, if it's not worth it for them to appear on the Zoom, then why do it? How do I get my kids to be like these kids on the screen, where they're engaged and they want to come back? I think for a principal, my advice would be is tell the teachers it's okay to deviate. It's okay, you know. I'm not going to come and ding you, and it's okay. So I think that's important when the staff member feels, wow, I'm going to try that. And let's say Jesus asks us all to be a part of a PD that he's going to give, you know, after hours, and you know, and the principal says, you know, it's okay to do that thing that Jesus showed you with, you know, whatever it was, Scratch, and try Scratch with your class. It's okay. I think that's important for a principal to let their staff know. You know, there's just ideal, you know, I don't know what would be an ideal thing other than, you know, teachers finding a way to draw the kids in, you know. For example, I mean, the other day, a colleague of mine, she was out in her backyard and she saw a seed pod on the floor. And she took a picture of it and she posted it on Facebook. And she said, what is this? And man, my mind started going. So I responded in the form of a lesson plan. It was crazy. And then a bunch of teachers started going, yeah, that's a good idea. And it was just one of these things where everybody started dropping ideas. You know what? That would be good. Let's tell all our kids to go out to the backyard and find a seed pod. And then somebody else said, you know, hey, let's do comparisons of seed pods. And, you know, if our kids were that excited about a seed pod, how do we get them that excited about a seed pod as I was? And you know, there's a lot of things we can do. One other thing I had a little bit of success was starting the little kind of a mini badging kind of thing. And I had this one badge quest thing that I had kids go out at night and look at Jupiter, and started appearing right when we were about to end school. And there's a lot of good software out there that's free and stargazing stuff. And the crazy thing was I started having students that are in my class, their parents contacting me, asking how the younger sibling could do the same thing. And because I would send the little digital badges, you know, they were things I created on pages. And how can the little ones, the younger brothers and sisters, do it too? And I said, just do it. Send me, you know, and there's always something that they have to return to me, whether it's a picture or a diagram or something, you know. How do we get that interaction with student and parent and teacher, and something that's exciting for them to do? And I think it comes back to, at least for me, my principal saying, that's okay, go for it, try it out, you know, see if it works, do it. I think when teachers feel that comfort zone where they feel, okay, I think I'm going to try that, I think that helps a lot, especially now with this digital age, the distance learning that we're going to go into.
Yeah, that's cool. So I noticed that you all are saying, especially on the advice for the admin, because I think, you know, it's a scary proposition for them too. Letting people, you know, attempt something different, deviate, and I think, you know, and fail, right? We should be allowed to fail and think about why we messed up and how we could come back. So that's really great stuff. Thank you. So the next question, because I skipped number 2, the next one is that you can basically, it's a free question. You could say whatever you like on any topic. And then if you don't, if you don't have one, I would urge you maybe even talk about like something with equity and project-based learning or equity. But if you have something ready, by all means shoot. And this one, whoever wants to start first is all good to go. And I'm gonna put the question on the bottom too.
I would like to jump in because of what Ascension just said. I saw whenever he said badges, all 3 of us went down and wrote it on our paper. I saw all 3 of us do that. And I think that's so important, of just creating any kind of community where you guys can build off each other. Just like he said with the Facebook group. Recently, I posted on Twitter, I was like, here's what I've created so far for 4th grade the first 2 weeks. I don't know if it's good, but here it is. And there were a lot of teachers under it being like, oh, this is great. And someone said, hey, I teach 4th grade too. Let's have a digital PLC monthly. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. So we're not even, you know, at the same school site or anything like that, but just it's so important to hear others' ideas because there's always something that you can build on. But I just thought it was hilarious. If you rewatch the video, as soon as he said badges, everyone just went down and to the right. And as far as project-based learning, I just really want to push the importance of finding something that you yourself as a teacher are passionate about or are interested about, because like it's been mentioned, there are ways to link a standard to anything. I'm privileged like Jesus that I am looping with my class as well. And I'm very excited because the last project we were working on was actually, we called it a mural project. And we started reading. I've been so interested in Brazil and the murals that are made there in the poorer cities, and how anytime a mural is made, it has really helped lower the crime rate and the statistics with that. And it was one day a few months ago, if you remember, Eddie, when our internet went out at the whole school district for like half a day, and there was nothing. Everything I have is on Drive. Everything's everywhere. So I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? And I was like, Brazil mural. So I pulled it up on my phone and started reading an article. And from there, it turned into a class research project of what do murals do for other communities, even in the United States. And it turned into what can we do for our community to create a mural in Bakersfield and then in our school area, because the area I work in is kind of prone to violence and gang activity. So how can a mural change that? And right before we left, I actually got a grant to make one at the park right across from the school. So I'm hoping that can continue. But I think it's just so important to take something that you're interested in and invested in, because your students will see that passion and will want to buy into it as well.
Very cool, very cool. I love it. And then anybody that wants to go next?
I'll go next. So you mentioned equity. So one of the big things about me is like the tech stuff. It's cool because it's a passion of mine. Always has been. I've shared that with Mr. Reyes. You know, when I was a kid. It's a sad story. I don't want to go into it right here, but you know, let's just say we had an old computer and I was trying to do things with it that it would never do, but because you know they got it because we were poor. But anyways, so I want my students to have access, especially down here in Calexico. I mean, especially right there, we're you know like 90% ELs, you know, free reduced lunch throughout the whole district. You know, you name it. A lot of these kids are not going to have access to 3D printers, robotics, VR, green screen, Arduinos, you know, you name it. But I think also they're not going to have access to it because of money, but also because, you know, we have a lot of parents that their education level is not that high. And that doesn't mean that they're not intelligent people, but that means they probably don't have a job that allows them the freedom to, you know, let me explore this thing, or because of where I work, I learned about this and I brought it into my home. My child learned about programming and coding. The other reason is I've been to a couple private schools for like PDs and training. It looks nothing like, you know, and when I say private, I mean, these are like, you know, it's like $3,000 to go there per month. One in particular, I was like, this looks nothing like a public school. And the gentleman I was with, he goes, why don't we just copy them? You know, why don't we just do what they're doing? If they're paying that much for this, they must be doing something right. This must be right. And that's why I teach the way I teach too, because look at the home market. Right now, if you want to buy a home, you know, it's $100,000 at least. I'm probably lowballing right there. With 3D printing in, I'll say 2 years. I'll be that, you know, optimistic. In 2 years, you can probably get a home for $5,000, 3D printed in a day. It's happening right now. So what's going to happen when these kids in 6-7 years are out of high school? What is going to be the thing that's like a norm for them? And us, you know, I can still remember when they used to build houses the old way. Really? How long did it take? Months? It takes minutes, or it takes hours now. And we're like, yeah, I know, I'm a fossil. But it's not really that old, because this technology really only blew up like 6-7 years ago. When I met Mr. Reyes, he's the one who introduced me to 3D printing. I think kids that are in, you know, rural areas, Title I, high EL, high socioeconomic, you know, there's a huge impact. I think that's where you need to see admins say, you know what, try that. You know what, let's figure out how we're going to do it. Let's fundraise. I think if they were trying to do something big, I think you could fundraise. But I think sometimes people go, no, I don't want to look like I'm begging for money. Well, then maybe that'll make a statement like, hey, we need more money. We need to do something different. Because these kids are going to get out of high school, and if they've never experienced any of that, and they land luckily somewhere nice and, you know, a good college or school, and they're interested in something that's related to technology, they have a higher chance at graduating. They can have a higher entry point if they've already experienced it. Because if they go somewhere and they want to be an engineer and they're like, hey, well, we're going to, you know, play around with 3D printers in this class. Oh, I've been using one since I was in fifth grade. Fifth grade, that's my star, right? That's my star pupil now. And that kid is going to go, you know what? This is easy. I'm going to ace college. What happens if they come in? They're like, well, I'm from this little town, and all I was given was go to ELD for 30, 40 minutes, and you're one of the low kids. They're going to go in and say, wow, what's a 3D printer? I've never even seen it, like magic. Oh, yeah, I'm just a dumb, you know, ELD kid. No, let's get rid of that. Forget that. And I know sometimes I talk like that and it gets me into trouble, but I'm sorry. I gotta teach what I believe. And none of these worksheets are ever gonna replicate that first time. Val, you know this, Mr. Reyes, you know, the first time that they set a print, remove it, and look at it, that's worth $1 million to me. And I want that to continue. So when they walk onto that campus, they look around and say, you know what, my teachers got me ready for the real world. Not, oh, I'm ready for tests. You guys got tests? Let me have it. No, forget that. Sorry, it's my little soapbox moment.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. Good job. And then next, whoever, go ahead.
I would like to add to that because I got into 3D printing. I probably, for the same reasons as Jesus, I was working with students that I still am working with students at a Title I school. They're, a lot of them are below grade level in reading and in mathematics. And I walked into a classroom and you're given curriculum and textbooks. And I know I keep saying this, but I looked at the textbooks and was like, I'm not even interested in this. I mean, because I have that literacy foundation, I was able to take real books and try to bring learning to life with real books. And then I started thinking, well, what other hands-on projects, how can I bring in science? How can I bring in technology? I absolutely love technology. And, you know, I don't know how exactly it happened, but I've been very, very fortunate in that I have an admin who was watching some of the stuff that I was implementing in the classroom and started to believe that all teachers need to have this. So he's been a huge advocate for rebranding what was Browning Road School to Browning Road STEAM Academy. I started with Donors Choose, and I tell people this, you know, I had to put in the extra time because I knew textbooks were not going to work for me. I started with Donors Choose and started asking, how can I get equipment? Let's start with 3D printers. And then once we got the 3D printers, it was, what can we do with this? What can we do with this that would have not just a classroom impact, not just a local impact, but a global impact? And students that were in third grade that would otherwise would never have an opportunity. My own personal children had never even seen a 3D printer. And I just started thinking all kids should have this. And I would talk to my principal, and he was in the process of rebranding the academy to a STEAM Academy. And so we're constantly working on how to create or how to make our STEAM Academy better. And I have to be honest with you, it feels like we're taking a step backwards because a lot of what we're trying to do requires having the students physically on campus, and that's a whole other debate. But I feel like with the admin that I have, with both my learning director and my principal, they're so supportive that they're very much, they know my heart, and they know that I'm going to try and bring that magic digitally, even like Jesus said, even if it means, you know, guys, we're going to design in Tinkercad right now, and then we're going to print this here. I mean, listen, one of the reasons I agreed to do this is because I wanted to learn from the three of you. And Jesus just gave that idea to me. So I've been very fortunate in that I have support, and I'm very passionate about showing the students that you have opportunities. The sky is the limit. Beyond the sky, you don't even have limits. You have opportunities, opportunities that I never had. And anyway, I don't even know how to end this.
Can I just add one quick thing? You said something that Mr. Reyes told me about 6 years ago when I first went to one of his PBLs. And I'll be super quick.
Hold on, let's say it on
You
3.
did
1, 2, 3.
3.
Why
not? Why not?
Why?
Because you took those textbooks and you grabbed books that you knew and you turned it into teaching tools. When I saw 3D print, I was like, it's got to be, yeah. And I thought, it's got to be for high school. And I even told him, I can't use this in elementary class. I teach 5th grade. And he just looked at me and goes, why not? And I was like, what? He goes, learn the tool. He goes, and you'll be able to see it with your like teacher vision. And I always use that, and I can't copyright it. It belongs to him. He goes, you're gonna see how to turn it into a teaching tool. And when I walked out and I went to all his sessions, because I was like, hey, I'm just gonna hang out with this guy. I like this guy. And now, I call him my mentor and one of my best friends. But you know what? I walked out and said, you know what? I'm gonna try that. And after that, I've been. If you see my classroom, it's great. But
Hey,
that's just it. Why not?
Ascension's next, but before he does, let all on 3. We're gonna give a why not. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Why not?
Why not?
Ascension, you're next.
Yeah, well, equity, that's a funny thing. And we were twittering the other day about this very subject, and because Jesus posted something, and I was remembering back, and I found a picture of that session where Jesus came in, and the why not happened. And it's funny how I evolved from somebody who taught what the district told me how to do it, where to stand, what was on my bulletin board. And one year, the new principal that came, he came like the year before, and then I'd always had the ELL kids, always. And one day he called me in and he said, hey, well, this was what he told me. He said, I've been looking at all your scores and all the kids that you've had like for the last 5 years. He said, why is it that every time you get a new class, he said, for some reason I've noticed they always give you the class from hell. And I said, I don't know. I said, is it because I'm male and maybe I can handle the more, rough kids that were always getting in trouble? I don't know. I said, it is what it is. It's what I got. And so he said, no, I'm going to send you to GATE training. I want you to be a GATE teacher because I want you to give it a try. And I said, okay, well, great. And so he sent me the next semester. And the following year, I was the GATE teacher. And the funny thing is the GATE coordinator came in and they talked to you and basically they tell you, you can do whatever, right? Because this is the GATE cohort. And I could do whatever I wanted. And the funny thing was I had 16 kids that were the GATE cohort and 17 kids that were not. They were the ELL kids. And so I said, well, I guess if I can, just do all kinds of whatever, I decided to do STEM that year and not a lot of it. And we started to do these boats out of these solar powered boats. And after lunch, I would put everything away and that's all the kids would do. And any day that I felt, the district office people are going to come, they're walking, we had this signal, you know how it is. The phone rings and somebody goes, they're here. So the district office people were coming to observe. So I told the kids, hey, we're not doing solar boats today. Put it away. And anytime that happened, the kids were like, what? No way. And the crazy thing is that the kids that were always off task, doing the book and me doing the overhead projector and all that stuff, when we were doing the solar boat STEM stuff and the room was noisy and there was trash all over and the kids were cutting and gluing and this and that, I'd never seen anything like it. You all have successes, but this was like all afternoon and the kids would just be devastated if we didn't have that kind of energy in the class. And we did this solar boat race at this huge pool across town, and it was great. And to this day, I get emails from kids, that were in my class that year. What I noticed and what I started to see that year is how many kids I had left behind. all those years because I was following the pacing guide to the letter. And I left too many kids behind because I didn't let them do hands-on. I didn't have my blocks of learning, after this is done, this is done. And so the following year, when they offered me the chance to go do the STEM and technology class, I said, yeah. So I went and did it. And that same observation happened year after year. It got to the point where I started to see the principal would come into my classroom about mid-May, and he'd say, I need Eddie's grade. What is Eddie getting in your class right now? I'd say, oh, he's getting like a B plus. And the principal go, no, he can't get a B plus. I'm like, why not? Well, because Eddie's failing all his other classes. And we're trying to make the list for promotion. And he goes, how did you give him a B? I said, he's my best engineer. He's my best coder. He's my best, and it wasn't just he, it was she. No, she doesn't do anything in the other classes. She's failing. She's my best artist. She's the best designer. And it was more validation that how many times we leave kids behind because we fail to see what they're good at. And you start to see, wow, I mean, just this child is going to be a great engineer, or this child is going to be a great artist, but those things aren't measured. And so that's, I think, equity. That's too bad. That's too bad that the equity portion has to happen or has to wait until the school or the district has a makerspace or a STEM class, or, that's what's unfortunate is equity doesn't happen until we make it something extra. And that's what I see, even with coding and art, it comes after school a lot of times in the extended day classes. It doesn't happen during the day, and it's not integrated into history. Kids aren't using Google Maps to do history. It's just, they're still using colored pencils and maps and paper maps when we have all this technology. And I don't know if there's a fast solution for that. I think it comes back to the leadership at the district level, them being able to see the what's already happening in industry all around us, and we're still using tools from the 1970s with our kids in the classroom.
Hey, I want to say, so I did my best to not say anything, but you touched my heart there with that last one, Ascension. And one of the things I point out, because I always, my heart is always working with at-risk kids, and I'll tell people, and they'll look at me like I'm crazy. I'll say, hey man, that kid's better than me at math. And they'll look at me like, oh, you have your doctorate. It's like, that doesn't, I know more than he does because I have more years of experience, but I can see his brain operating in a way to where when he's my age with the right classes, he's going to be way further in math than I am today. That girl's a better artist than me. How do they know that? Well, because I'm looking at how she's drawing, and her drawings would have whooped mine at her age, and I like to draw. That boy, the way that he uses those words, like that's an art form. Like that is, he would be like he'd be writing novels and breaking rules, and that doesn't. And I say she's a better writer than me, and people say, oh come on, like you had to write a dissertation. It's like, yeah, but like if she was my age and she kept on this path, she'd destroy me by this time. And I agree with what you guys are saying. So we're at the time limit. If you guys want to share any last thing for a couple minutes, and then I'll let you all out to, so I'm not holding you hostage. But I'm really loving the conversations, you all. So yeah, if you just want to just go one round real quick, last round of just any closing thoughts for a couple minutes, and then whoever wants to hop in.
I just wanted to add how important listening to Ascension and what you just said right now, that, data is so important. Data, I say data, is so important at the district level. You have so many people that just look at the numbers. And I think with STEAM or project-based learning, hands-on learning, the creativity, I think what it's measuring is that qualitative data that you're just not going to see unless you're in the room. And I think that sometimes it doesn't get the value it deserves, because, you know, you have people that just care about the numbers that are saying, how do you measure what they're learning in STEM?
Oh.
I mean, how can you measure that? And I think that I know there are people that are already measuring the qualitative data, but I just feel like if you want to measure it, come on in and see it. I mean, see it, live it. I've never felt more alive than when I'm in that classroom. The way Ascension just described the classroom with the mess and the cutting and the gluing and the engagement. I mean, my heart just breaks that we don't have that, you know, right now. But we're going to find a new way. We're going to find a new way to do this.
And then anybody else that wants to hop in?
I guess just the last thing I want to say is just nobody's perfected this yet. I know there's already like some books and this and that. That's more power to them. I mean, they're probably good, but nobody's mastered this because it's not even a year old. We haven't even been doing this a year. Any teacher out there that has an idea, just try it, because right now is actually the time to try it. Because what are we going to do in June of next year? We're not going to do state testing. It's out the window right now. Who knows how long it's going to be out the window. Take this time right now to find new ways to be engaging, because whatever you're using now is going to translate once you're inside the physical classroom. Any of these digital tools, the kids are going to use them. Plus, if you already had something that you do in person, like, you know, project-based learning, now you can shore up that side where you have digital, and so you can do a mix of both in person. Right now, it's pretty much got to be all digital. That, and just, you know what? Not that it's the Wild West, but like I said, it's something totally brand new. And myself, I have some ideas. They might fall flat. They might be awesome. They fall flat, I'll probably still share it. If they're, you know, it's a home run, I'll share it for sure, because I want the props. But you know, just everything that Mr. Reyes says is true. You know, some kids that I had that are not supposed to be gifted. I had this one kid that was one of the best animators I've ever had this last year, and he's an RSP. He's not supposed to, but that's because they labeled him. I didn't label him. I did. Actually, I did label. I labeled him an awesome animator. I didn't care about his RSP. I didn't care about anything else.
Yeah.
And guess what? He was teaching other kids.
Yeah.
So maybe he's a future teacher.
I think that's such a great point. And, you know, it really is, you know, now or never. Now's the time. Like, I think the state testing point is so important because, you know, they're probably not going to have us do it. So there shouldn't be that stress of like, oh my gosh, SBAC and SBAC STEMs. Those are all great things you can still work in. But I mean, like Mr. Reyes mentioned, as far as like giving students that time to show their creativity is so important. And it can be anything, like learn about aerodynamics and have them make a paper airplane at home. Like anything that you can do to give them that creative opportunity is just going to be so beneficial.
You know, we were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but sometimes we go on we have these conversations, and he was telling me about a mutual colleague that he attended a PBL session with, and Jesus said something that he was told by his name is Leo, by Leo was, you know, make it your own. And, you know, as we were talking about this right now, about kind of all these new things that are new to other teachers, maybe not so much to us, but to others. Jesus was mentioning to me, and I'm using all the thoughts that Jesus was talking to me about. Try something new, and if it's not quite right, well, make it your own. Make it work for you. You know, it's okay. It's okay, and we're going on the same journey that our kids do, that we hope they do, is iteration. You know, if it doesn't work, take it apart, use what worked, get rid of what didn't work. And so I think if we go into it, and other teachers go into it kind of with that attitude, especially now, I think we'll do more good than harm.
All right. So I think just absolutely feel blessed, first of all, for being able to rope you all into this little rodeo here. And but I really appreciate the conversations. Very deep, very thoughtful. I'm hoping that anybody that watches this gets the same out of it. And then as we go out, I just want to give one more shout out because, like I'm saying, all these people, I met them, and I touch on project-based learning, but these are all some all-stars that have different messages and working with different populations, but always bringing the best out of everybody, and really just doing fantastic work. So thank you here to all my heroes, and you all have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, Eddie. Thank you.
Yes.